is going on, everyone? It is Jack Veltri here for GamecockCentral.com for a special edition of GC Live. And today it's just me. Joe is heading back to South Bend, Indiana for spring break. And, all of our college interns are all over the country and some are even traveling the world. So it's just me today. And we'll see if I get any special visitors from some of my coworkers maybe. But anyway, happy Monday, everyone. Hope everyone had a great weekend, and thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything, be sure to drop them down below. And let me know where you think South Carolina is going to get ranked today, because that is the topic of discussion. South Carolina had a great past week. They've played really well lately. They went to College Station and beat a good Texas A&M team. And then, this past Saturday, I was there along with Peyton Butt, and we, got to see South Carolina make a double-digit point comeback and pull off a ranked win, which is very, very good. And I don't know. I don't know where this team's going to get ranked. They were at 18, I believe, last week. And, it's tough because, you're entering the home stretch, and a lot of these teams that are ranked right now are, they're still winning games and stuff. So I don't expect South Carolina to move up tremendously, a ton. But, look, they're not getting left out. They've been playing really well, and they're getting hot at the right time. So before we get into all the action, just wanted to do a few ad reads with first from, again, it's just me today. So just, bear with me for a second as I, let's see. Anyway, so let's see. So our first sponsor today is from Liberty Tax. And I'm having trouble finding all this stuff right now. So, you know what? We'll just bear with me. Sorry, guys. I should have been a little more prepared with this stuff. But anyway, we'll get into all that stuff later. But so again, just leave a comment where you think South Carolina is going to get ranked, and any questions you guys have. Again, we'll be hanging out live here as we wait for the AP poll. And look who is joining me, my good friend.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Running a show is, I guess it's not all it's cracked up to be. So anyway, all right, there we go. Thank you so much. So this is our first ad read from Liberty Tax, and let's see. How do I don't even know. I'm so sorry, guys. How do I? Shit, dude. All right, so sorry about that, guys. Look, that's probably why I'm a writer, right? I'm still getting figured this whole video thing out, and but anyway, so let's go back through the last few games, right? Obviously 2 weeks ago they had a really tough time at Auburn. That was a pretty bad loss, I'd say. Losing by 40 points, and then that game was just, think about it. Auburn was shooting over 60% that entire night, and South Carolina it didn't matter what they did. And I don't think they played a bad game necessarily. It's just it's just you couldn't stop them. Anything Auburn did, they were hitting shots like crazy. And you go into the LSU game, right? You're back at home and against a team that you should potentially beat, but you didn't, and you blew a game that you probably should have won. And then you're going back on the road to Ole Miss, and it's a tough road trip. Ole Miss and Texas A&M. I think originally I said they were going to split, and of course they ended up winning both games, and they beat Ole Miss in convincing fashion. And then you go to College Station, you blow another double-digit lead, and then you find a way to get the job done. And that's the thing about this team, right? Is that they've been such a good second half team. And we'll talk about more specifics with the Florida game because I think that's a perfect example of what this team can do when it comes down to it. Yeah, so just I think that A&M game, they had another double-digit lead. They blew it. But then you see guys like Michi Johnson and Talon Cooper. Talon Cooper hitting some big threes and Michi, driving to the rim. And it looked like South Carolina might be in a situation where, okay, maybe they're not going to pull this game out. Maybe it's just not going their way. But they find a way, and give credit to Michi for on that last shot there, and give credit to Lamont Paris for not calling a timeout there. As Texas A&M went and tied the game, I think with maybe like 10 seconds left, and then you see Michi just get the ball, drive down on the other side of the floor, and he has. I mean, it takes good court vision to make the pass he did to Zach Davis right in the middle of the paint, and hit the go-ahead layup to ultimately win the game. And that was a huge win, and I know a lot of y'all were probably happy with it. And then you fast forward to Saturday with Florida. That's another game where it seemed South Carolina is in another tight spot. I think they were down at the half. Am I right on that? I think that's about right. And then they're down by double digits in the second half, and then they come back and they pull it off. So that was an impressive win, and it came down to this, guys. South Carolina played, the one thing they've done well all year is they played really well defensively. But obviously, in that game, Florida was just shooting really well. I mean, they had a ton of crazy shots. It kind of reminded me of Auburn a little bit with the way they were shooting. But yeah, I mean, Lamont made the switch in the second half to go with the 1-3-1 defense, which we've seen them do a good bit this year. But it completely changed the dynamic of the game. And Florida didn't shoot bad at all by any stretch. I think Florida continued to hit shots. But the thing that happened was, when they made that switch to the 1-3-1, you're seeing Florida play a little bit more rattled, right? They were still hitting shots, but at the same time, they were also, forced into a lot of turnover situations. They played a little more careless with the ball and made some sloppy passes. And that's a recipe for disaster. And especially with the way South Carolina was shooting. I mean, at the end of the first half, they're shooting 37% from the field. And then in that second half, they go on to shoot 57%, almost 58% the rest of the way. So that's where this game changed, in my opinion. And we'll get to the man of the hour with Michi Johnson and his performance in that game. But, man, I mean, just an unbelievable turnaround for this team. Right in the home stretch as you get into what's going to be the pinnacle of the season for South Carolina, with a chance to make it, as a potentially one seed, at least win a share of the SEC regular season title. That's what's on the line, guys. And I think at the beginning of the year, not many. I mean, unless there's people out there that had the script ready, I don't think anyone saw this coming. So it's been an incredible season, and we're entering what's going to be a potentially really insane week. Oh, Catherine Blanton, it's good to hear from you. So hi, Jack. Great to see you on here. Great come from behind game on Saturday. Yeah, always great to hear from you, Miss Blanton. Always appreciate you. What an incredible game on Saturday. That was an insane game, guys. I mean, look, I think the thing with South Carolina that we've kind of learned, and we can kind of say the same thing with baseball, is that you never know, man. You don't count these guys out. That's kind of what we've learned, is that, when times get tough, this team typically has found a way to get the job done. And they have been playing really, really good ball down the stretch in these games. It hasn't always been pretty, but I think the way they finish, I think that's one thing that's really going to help them come tournament time. So, yeah, so we are about a few minutes away now from hearing what South Carolina's ranking is going to be, and I'm pulling it up on my phone just to break it down as soon as it happens. Once again, guys, appreciate all you guys tuning in just with me today. Again, no Joe Machika today. He is back, heading to South Bend, Indiana for college spring break. And I wish I could say I was on spring break, but I'm here, I'm grinding, and we're ready for a busy week, man. This past weekend was nuts. Saturday, Friday, Clemson series with baseball, that game got rained out, and so didn't have anything going on. And then Saturday, it's you got basketball, and then you head straight to baseball. And unfortunately, baseball this weekend didn't fare too well. But that's a topic for another time. And the one thing I will say about the baseball team, real quick, now that we're on the subject, is I've seen a lot of people kind of complaining about the coaching and stuff and the way the team's been playing. It's only the third week of the season, guys. As a voice of reason here, I think this team's going to be just fine. The thing with them is that all the things that are going on right now with, not being able to hit with runners in scoring position and, not getting the job done, I think they're going to be able to turn it around. I think this offense is way too good not to be able to change the tune once the conference play starts, right? SEC play starts next week. You go to Oxford, and then I think you go to Alabama after that. So, I mean, look, this is kind of your last real week where you can kind of dress rehearsal, if you will. You get Longwood this weekend, and you have 2 midweek games. So I think
I'm not a sports scientist, but I invest in it.
Sorry, I think things will be fine with this baseball team, and I know there's a lot of people kind of upset about this weekend, and losing to Clemson's a big deal, man. I think that definitely gets underestimated about how important this rivalry is and stuff. And I think South Carolina look, they got to hit with runners in score position. That's the key, man. And we'll see what happens. But that's my baseball 2 cents for right now. So like I said, if you guys want to go ahead and let me know where you think South Carolina is going to get ranked today. Again, they were ranked 18 last week, so a lot of teams won this past week, and I don't expect too much to change. Maybe they get into the top 15. I think that's probably about where they will be. But again, here's the thing with the rankings and stuff. It's a nice token to kind of get an idea of where you're at, but at the same time, does it really mean that much? I mean, there's no participation trophies handed out. At the end of the day, South Carolina's in a position to win the SEC, and they're more likely than not, I'd probably say about 99% going to be a lock for the NCAA tournament, which that means you're one of the 64 best teams. Doesn't matter if you're 1 or 64, you're there, and you have a shot to win the greatest championship in college basketball. So, and I don't think many people could say this is where this team is going to be at this time of year. Jewish Jesus 2 says, I think they're playing great. You watch their week to week, and you know that they beat Tennessee because of their defense. It's just other people doubting. Yeah, and we'll get into Tennessee after we get word on the rankings here and kind of preview that matchup a little bit. We'll have more coverage on this game in the coming days. So be sure to stay tuned to Gamecock Central and our YouTube page for all that sort of content. Should be a great week of basketball. But thank you for the comment. But totally right. It's going to be a big week, and I'm looking forward to it. Charles Morris says, "Stop saying that the top 64 teams get in. That's not true. I mean, technically, top 68. I mean." Actually, you're right. You're right. I didn't mean it like that. I meant it like you obviously have your conference champions get in, and then you have your at-large bids. But in my opinion, I mean, these are probably some of the better teams in college basketball, right? They've all earned their way here, and winning the conference tournament is not something that's easily done. So, it takes. I mean, there's some Cinderella stories out there. So, so it's automatic bids and stuff. and there are teams that are going to get left out, and I think South Carolina at this point should be in position to be in there. I think the latest is that they've been a 6 seed in bracketology, if I'm not mistaken, and that feels about right. I think a few weeks ago when they were on the tear that they were on, not losing for about a month, I think the idea was that maybe they can get in as a two seed, a 3 seed maybe, but that's kind of changed a little bit with some of the losses they've had. But who knows, man? If they win the conference title, I mean, they're automatically in at that point, and that means they're not in that large team. So I don't know. I mean, they definitely could be a 3 seed maybe if they win the conference title, but we'll have to see what happens. So anyway, the rankings should be coming. Oh, here we go. South Carolina is number 17 in the country. So they only moved up 1 slot this week. And again, like I said, a lot of teams won this past week. So it was going to be hard to make substantial ground moving up and whatnot. But I think that's about right. I mean, 17, I think most people are going to be like, oh, why aren't they top 15? They've had a great week. They beat a ranked Florida team, and Florida is no longer ranked, by the way, as no surprise. They only received 39 votes this week. So no surprise there. But yeah, I mean, look, in Tennessee, for those who are wondering, Tennessee has stayed at number 4 in the country. So we will have a 4 versus 17 matchup come Wednesday. And that is going to be a great game. That's where we'll turn our attention to now, the Tennessee game, right? It's in case you guys missed it, about, I want to say a month ago now, maybe. It was back in January, I believe, maybe early February, when South Carolina went to Knoxville. They just came off of the Kentucky game, if I'm not mistaken, winning that game at home, upset win, fans stormed the court. We know the story. But going to Knoxville, a lot of people counted South Carolina out, didn't give them much of a chance. But if you won that game, it's like, okay, you're kind of for real at this point, and you're just, you deserve to be ranked. Not just that, but you deserve to be taken a little more seriously by everyone around the country. Because I think there was still this, mantra message out there, this belief that South Carolina was still just a feel-good story. But they went to Knoxville. Granted, they didn't shut down Dalton Knecht, who is easily one of the best players in college basketball. I think he's honestly going to be an elite NBA talent someday. And whenever he goes to the NBA draft, I think he's definitely going to be highly sought after. And yeah, I mean, they didn't shut him down, but the rest of that team, I mean, they dominated Tennessee defensively speaking. They held a lot of their big guys to minimal points. And I mean, look, it's hard when I think a lot of teams have had trouble stopping Dalton Knecht this season. He's been unbelievable. I mean, in that game, he had 31 points on, 31 points on 11 of 24 shooting. And that's unbelievable. Some of the shots, I mean, I was there in person. Some of the shots he was hitting were like miracle type prayer shots that you take. He was just one leg chucking it up and just hitting. And it's like, how do you stop that, right? And unfortunately, you couldn't stop him. But at the same time, this is how South Carolina won this game. The rest of their starters, let's go through it. 6 points. 2 points from Ziegler on 0 of 6 shooting. So he only had 2 free throws in 32 minutes. Vescovi, 10 points. Those are their 2 big guards right there. And then James only had 2 points. And they only had 8 bench points. So, you beat Tennessee on a night where you only shot 33.9% from the field and scored 63 points. But Tennessee shot 36% from the floor and 5 of 21 from three-point range. So that's the key to success, guys. That's how you're going to beat them. And I mean, look, can it be done again? Absolutely. But I believe Tennessee's going to have a better game plan, I think, this time around, and not take South Carolina so lightly. And I don't know if they did. I don't know what it was. I think just South Carolina just played better that night. And again, that defense, I think the world really got to see what this defense is all about. So, look, I mean, that was a huge, huge game. And I think it definitely caught the attention of everyone. So Charles Morris with another comment. If we go 2-0 this week, should we be top 10? So Mississippi State's not ranked, and that's who they play on Saturday. So here's the breakdown of how this week kind of can shape out. If South Carolina wins on Wednesday against Tennessee, they are, I believe, tied for first in the SEC. Depends on what Alabama does, obviously. And Alabama still has to go to Gainesville, and that's going to be a tough trip. So there is a chance South Carolina could be, the number one overall seed in the conference and win that regular season title outright. But we'll have to see what happens. But then you go to Starkville, and I looked it up this morning on KenPom, and obviously KenPom is one of the many metrics on how you look at a team and stuff. But they were number 30 in KenPom, Mississippi State was. So not ranked in the AP poll, but a good team nonetheless. And it's been a while since South Carolina played them, but you have to remember, all the way back at the beginning of SEC play, that was the first team that South Carolina played to get the conference slate going and got a huge win at home. It was a gritty win, but they managed to get it done. And so now they get to play them to end the regular season. And this is going to be a good Mississippi State team. But I think if you do go 2-0 this week, look, you're beating the number 4 team in the country, and then you're beating another good SEC team. So maybe, but I think it depends on what happens around the country, right? We'll see. But in my opinion, I think South Carolina, if they can win these 2 games this week, they should at least be considered heavily for the top 10. So we'll see. But I definitely do think they definitely have a great chance. So in case you're just joining us just now, thank you for tuning in first off. Again, my name is Jack Veltri, one of the writers at Gamecock Central. I cover men's basketball on the daily. And South Carolina ranked number 17 in the country. And we will have a 4 versus 17 matchup this Wednesday at Colonial Life Arena. And that is going to be the battle for first place in the SEC. And things are getting tight, guys. And, the SEC tournament's next week. And everything is still up for grabs in terms of seeding, right? And I think if you're South Carolina, I think you're in a great position and that leads me into a great question. Steve Hester asks, thank you for the question, where do you think we max out as a seed? So, and he says 4. They're going to be a top 4 seed in my opinion. And thank you again for the question. They're going to be a top 4 seed in my opinion. I think it would take, I'm not sure what's going to happen, right? I think if you lose 2 games this week, what happens then, right? There's so many different factors that you kind of have to look at and other teams behind you. I know you got Kentucky behind you, Auburn behind you. Depends on what those guys do as well. But I think right now, just win your games and you're 1 or 2 seed in the SEC tournament. And that's ultimately where you want to be. If you're one of those top 4 seeds, you're already doing a great job because then you get to end up being, one of the top 4 seeds, and you get the double bye in the SEC tournament, which is definitely a huge thing because then you get to play next Friday, and you get the benefit of playing a lower seed, and then all you have to do is you play Friday, Saturday, and then you win those 2 games, and then you're playing for the championship on Sunday. So is South Carolina capable of doing it? Absolutely. What's it going to take? Well, first off, it's going to take great defense, which South Carolina has typically done a really good job of playing all year. Outside of, in my opinion, 2 games where you go to Tuscaloosa, you let Mark Sears and that team just berate you with 3-point shots and just hit so many different shots in the second half to make that game a 20-point plus blowout, and then you go to Auburn, like I said before, and you lose by 40 points. You get up 101 points, and you lose that game. But, again, you're not being a team when they're just hitting every shot and shooting 60-something% from the field. So it is what it is. Other than that, South Carolina's been playing really, really solid ball defensively, locking down some good teams. Like I said before, Florida in the second half, that 1-3-1 move to defense was the smartest decision Lamont Paris could have made. And it's crazy that he continues to make these decisions kind of, I don't want to say on the spot, but he makes these adjustments probably during halftime, and it pays dividends. You see a completely different team in the second half. And I don't know what it is, guys, but at this point, he's got to be he's got not just SEC Coach of the Year. He's got to be National Coach of the Year. Am I right? I feel like he's definitely on track to do it. name someone else that can do the things that he's done this year. Name a guy that can take an 11-21 team, bottom of the SEC, picked last to finish in the conference this year, and they're playing for a potential regular season title right now. I mean, it's a crazy story, and that's. I mean, I think people were weary about the Lamont hire at first when he originally got here, replacing Frank Martin, but I mean, he's done nothing but. I don't want to say nothing but win, but in his second year, it's taken a bad year one to get to where you're at now. And people forget a lot of the time last year, South Carolina was in a position to win a lot of those games that they ended up losing. But they just blew it in the second half. That's kind of been the opposite this year. I think they're a better second half team, and it's showing right now. So I think long term speaking, I think this is I mean, you got to keep him here as long as you can, obviously. But right now, he's been awesome for this team. And you're right, Steve. I mean, the adjustments he makes in game, it just that's what shows you that this guy is not a pretender. He's a fantastic coach and has done a really good job. The thing that separates him is that he's able to make the changes in game. Right, you can make all these adjustments, leading into your next game and stuff. The fact that he's able to do it on a whim and it ends up working out, because sometimes it's not going to work out, right? That's basketball, right? Some teams are just going to beat you. With that Auburn game, I'm sure there were adjustments made going into that second half, even though you're down by 20 and stuff. And South Carolina actually played a little bit well to start that second half in Auburn. But again, it's just shots were falling for Auburn, and there was nothing you could do about it. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So, but going back to Florida for a second, Meechie Johnson. We haven't talked about him yet. He was dynamite, man. He was fantastic. We saw him get back to a level of basketball we're kind of used to seeing him play, right? With that Texas A&M game where he drops 20 plus points and obviously has the key assist to Zach Davis to win that game, and that kind of got his mojo back a little bit. And then you go into Saturday, and he only had 4 points going into the second half against Florida, and didn't shoot particularly great. But I think as you get into that second half, and one shot starts to fall, then another, and it's like, okay, he's back, and he ended up with 25 points, 21 of which came in the second half on 9 of 10 shooting, and he's been very, very, very good for this team lately, and that's one thing you definitely need from your guards, especially, right? Because I think with March Madness, it's good guards that get you to where you want to go. Obviously, South Carolina's got great guys in the paint to make plays. BJ Mack, I know he had a rough game the other day, and he's kind of been a little inconsistent, but I believe he's going to get it going again. And then obviously Colin Murray-Boyles has been fantastic. And let's just talk about him for a second. He had a double-double, 15 and 11, but he went 9 of 10 at the free throw line. Look, free throws with this team have been a little hit or miss. There's been some games like the Georgia game, for instance, at home, all the way back at the beginning of SEC play, where they should have won that game. And if they had hit more free throws, they would have won that game. But they didn't, and they ended up losing. And that's that was on a game that you let get away from you for one, and you should have won. But again, nothing you can do about it now except move forward. But right now, they shooting better at the free throw line, about 74% on Saturday, and Colin Murray-Boyles 9 of 10 at the free throw line. That's very big. And then you get Zach Davis 6 of 6 at the line. So a very good all around game. And back to the guard play for a second. Meechie, 25 points, great effort. And then Talon Cooper had been slumping a little bit. I don't want to say as Meechie for almost 3 to 4 weeks, whatever it was, just couldn't hit anything. He had some games where he didn't have a single point and instead made plays with assists and rebounds. And that was that's the sign of a good basketball player right there. He's able to do other things than just score. But with Talon Cooper, in my opinion, for most of this year, I think he's been the most consistent shooter on this team, right? When you need him to hit a shot, he's capable of doing so. And we saw it again on Saturday and we saw briefly in the Texas A&M game as well, where he hit a few shots, but 11 points, nothing crazy there. But the big thing is he goes 3 of 4 from 3-point range, and he's shooting 50% from the field overall with 4 steals, might I add. 4 steals. So that's the sign of things are kind of starting to pick up again, right? As the season winds down, as we head into the biggest game of the year on Wednesday, and then obviously Mississippi State, and then the SEC tournament, and so on and so forth. Your guards are really starting to pick it up again, and they're looking good. So I think as we get into these games, you need your guards to really play well. And right now, I think they're getting back on track. So you have to be, if you're Lamont Paris, if you're a fan of this team, you got to be very happy with where this team's at. Again, ranked number 17 in the country by the Associated Press, and that I feel like is a fair ranking. If you guys disagree, if you guys think they should be ranked higher, let me know and we can discuss. But I think right now 17 feels about right for this team. So looking ahead, once again, to this Tennessee game, it's going to come down to defense, right? It's going to be an electric atmosphere. That's the one thing that South Carolina really has in its corner that they didn't have last time, is that they had to go into Knoxville and win. And not many teams could say they did that. South Carolina, one of the few to do so this year. And that's a tough place to play, man. Knoxville. Those fans are those are some good fans there. So when Rocky Tup's playing and stuff, it's tough, man. Even in football too. But you get the benefit of being on your home floor on Wednesday at the CLA, and you're gonna have the fans rocking. Should be a sellout crowd. If you guys are thinking about going, make it happen, man. I'll tell you, that Florida game on Saturday was nuts. The Kentucky game earlier this year was crazy, and it's definitely a good time for watch some Gamecock basketball. But yeah, man. In my opinion, what South Carolina did so well last time, and Lamont talked about this after that Tennessee game, was breaking the game down, right? Taking it in stride, small sections, right? It's like anything, right? You're doing a task. Knock out one thing at a time, right? Okay. Let's try to stop Dalton Connect. Okay. That didn't work. What can we do next? Go ahead and take the guys out of the game around him. Make them rely on just Connect to win the game, which in some cases, I'm sure he can do. He is a great basketball player. No doubt about it, not discrediting his play at all. But it is very hard to win. Basketball is such a team sport, right? It's very hard to win when one of your guys is on. And Tennessee, like I said before, had an awful night shooting. It says a lot when your next best shooter on the team only had 10 points. And your other third best, maybe second, third best player didn't even hit a single field goal. So that says a lot about the night that South Carolina had defensively speaking. Now, moving to this game, it's going to be a lot different, right? Tennessee is going to be, for one, very pissed off about that South Carolina game, losing a game that they felt like they maybe should have won. Who knows? Maybe it was bad calls. Maybe it just wasn't hitting enough shots. And say what you will, but South Carolina outplayed those guys that night. And I think Tennessee is going to make sure that doesn't happen again. I think it's very hard to beat a team twice in a season, especially at this pedigree where Tennessee's kind of rolling right now. Tennessee just beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa on the road in a very hostile environment over the weekend, college game day, all that sort of stuff. And they've got a lot to play for too. They've got a chance to, I don't know what happens for them if they end up winning this game, Tennessee, if they lock up, the 1 seed or not, now that they've beaten Alabama and stuff. But you got to think that's probably about right, because I don't know. We'll see. But the key is just you got to shoot better. You got to shoot better. Meechie Johnson in that Tennessee game didn't particularly play amazing like we saw over this past weekend. But if you get him back to where he's been at, scoring 20 points a game and stuff, and Talon Cooper doing his thing, and the guys off the bench coming in and playing well, and you get CMB and BJ Mag, Zach Davis, everyone doing what they're supposed to do, you will probably win this game. That's just my opinion. That's my feeling on it. I just think if you replicate that game plan, but do it even better. Do it better than before. Try to limit Connect a little bit more. Take him out of the game as you can, and maybe force the other guys to take the shots. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I can tell you, man, Tennessee is going to be very, 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 eager to probably put this game behind them. And Robert Doug Hill says, thank you for your comment, by the way. I feel Ole Miss felt the same way, and we went there and won. Yeah, you're very right about that, Robert. In my opinion, with that Ole Miss game, that was a game where let's fast back or backtrack to that first game where they met, earlier in the year at CLA. South Carolina is up by double digits, and then it slowly dies down a little bit. The second half of that game was pretty not pretty at all for South Carolina, and they did enough good things in the end to win. Obviously, Colin Murray Boyles has that huge block at the end of the game to win that one and propel South Carolina to victory. But other than that, I mean, Ole Miss was shooting really, really, really well that night. And the fact that you were able to beat them with how well they were shooting from the field says a lot about this team and the things that they can potentially overcome. But then you go to Oxford a few weeks later. This is right after you lose to Auburn and LSU in one of the worst weeks. But the benefit you had, and I think this is kind of getting underlooked a little bit, is you had the entire week off. No games during the week or anything. You just have an entire Saturday to Saturday kind of break to refresh, retool, get in the film room, get in practice, and course correct a little bit, right? The season was far from over 2-3 weeks ago, but you had to get it right before things kind of spiraled out of control. And you go to Oxford, and you're leading pretty much the entire game. You played well from start to finish, won by double digits, and you're back on track now. And then you go to College Station, you win that game, and then you come back home and play Florida, a good Florida team at that, and you get out rebounded a little bit. You're down at the half, you're down by double digits, and then you find a way to get the job done. And that's kind of the mantra of this team, finding a way. That's what they do. And now you're on a 3-game winning streak. So, yeah, I feel like Tennessee is going to feel the same type of way where they felt like they should have won that game at home. And now they got to do it the hard way. They got to go into Columbia and win a game it's not going to be easy. It is going to be the furthest thing from it. It's going to be a real tough game, but at the same time, I think South Carolina can do it. I don't know. Just something feels good about this team where they're back on a winning track now. They get the benefit of being at home. They've already beaten this team once. So can they do it again? Most definitely. It's just going to come down to the guys stepping up and, once again, doing what they've done pretty much all year, play good defense. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. We'll stay on for a few more minutes and talk basketball. But, again, if you're joining us, if you've been on, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate everyone that's tuned in today. Again, South Carolina, number 17 in the country, only moving up one spot in the AP poll this week. Not the end of the world, not a big deal. Again, what matters is 3 different things. You have a chance to win the SEC regular season title. You're trying to win the SEC tournament next week. And then the week after that, you're going to play in March Madness more likely than not. So you've got a lot of other things to worry about than a little number that is beside your name, right? I mean, it's cool and all. It gets South Carolina a little bit more on the map. And this game for sure, regardless of what happens, a lot of people are going to be tuning into this game. I think we're in for a real treat this week. It is too bad this game isn't on a weekend because I would say, well, obviously you got Duke, North Carolina this weekend. But if this game were on a weekend, who knows? Maybe College Game Day is in town for that kind of game. It's a lot is on the line for this one. And, South Carolina, it's got a real good chance to not just beat Tennessee again, but get in a position where, okay, you beat Tennessee. You only have to win one more game to at least clinch a share of the SEC regular season title. And a regular season championship, it's cool and all, I think. But again, I think your end goal is to win the SEC tournament because this team definitely has a legit chance to do so, and then go into March Madness and make a run. And look, I mean, we saw it in 2017 with South Carolina going to the Final Four. I think these teams are a little similar in that they have the ability to make runs, but I think talent-wise, that 2017 team was so good. Guys like Sindarius Thornwell, PJ Dozier, guys like that. You're led by Frank Martin. A lot of Chris Silva was on that team, I believe. A lot of good talent on that team that's, been in the NBA and stuff. And who knows with this team. But I think chemistry-wise, just overall, what they're able to do on both ends of the floor this year has been so impressive. That's been the story with South Carolina this year. It's just not just winning games and getting off to a good start in non-conference play, but able to keep it going and play wire to wire pretty much the season. Outside of a few, like maybe 3 or 4 games where you felt like, okay, they should have maybe won this game. The Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia games in particular, I felt like with the blemishes on the schedule, and maybe the Clemson loss too, but that was still very early in the year. But South Carolina right now is in a position to, everything's for the taking right now. And I think 2 weeks ago, you might have felt like, oh, what's going to happen? South Carolina's lost 2 straight, and maybe they're going back down. That's what people are used to around here. But when this is where things get interesting. When people are doubting them, when no one gives them a chance, that's where they thrive, man. And I think we're getting back to that where, okay, they move back in the rankings a little bit. And not a lot of people are giving them a chance. Look at ESPN's metrics, for instance, with the odds of winning some of these games. They weren't favored in the I believe they were favored in the Florida game, but that came after both those road games at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. They weren't favored, and they went in there and won both those games. So when people are doubting them, when no one gives them a chance, that's where they're at their best. And I think we're going to see that again come tournament time with maybe not the SEC tournament. I think a lot of people are expecting South Carolina to be top tier SEC, higher seed in that tournament and potentially win it all. But come, March Madness with the NCAA tournament, I mean, we could be looking at them being a 6, 7 seed and going up against some of the bigger blue blood schools at some point. Similar to 2017 when South Carolina has to play Duke, Gonzaga, Florida, teams like that. I know not all of them are blue bloods, but I'm just remembering some of the teams they had to beat. Obviously, they didn't beat Gonzaga in the Final Four, but some of the teams they had to play that year to get to where they wanted to go. And I'm sure not a lot of people gave them a chance. I wasn't covering this team back then. I think I was still in high school back then. So it has been a long time since South Carolina's been in this type of position, but I do expect going into the NCAA tournament, not a lot of people are going to count them in and expect them to do anything crazy, but that's where they thrive, man. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm wrong on that sentiment of people counting them out, but that's just kind of been the vibe lately is that, when South Carolina, when no one gives them a chance, they find a way to make you pay. And I think that is a great conclusion to the show. Again, thank you guys again for tuning in. Again, South Carolina, number 17 in the country, playing number 4 Tennessee Volunteers on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. at Colonial Life Arena. I'll be there. Going to be a great time. We'll have all the coverage for you. And then Saturday, they are at Mississippi State with a chance. If they win on Wednesday, it's going to get interesting, guys, where they have a chance to at least get a share of the SEC regular season title. Again, my name is Jack Veltri for GamecockCentral.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.